In today's video, we're gonna find out who Madden thinks is the best team in the NFL that didn't make the playoffs. Now, there are 18 teams in total that missed out on the postseason. We have to get that number down to 16, which means in both conferences, we have to go from 9 teams to 8. So we're gonna do a play-in. Now, to find out which 2 teams in each conference are gonna battle for the last spot, we have to spin a wheel. In the AFC, the first team that's gonna have to fight for their spot in the tournament is the Los Angeles Chargers. And their opponent, who they're gonna have to go through just to make it into the tournament, is gonna be the Tennessee Titans. And then in the NFC, the team that's gonna have to fight for their lives before the tournament even begins is the Seattle Seahawks. And their matchup in the play-in in the NFC is gonna be the Chicago Bears. So here's what the bracket is looking like, man. We matched up the highest overall record of the teams that missed the playoffs in that conference to the lowest overall. So we have the Bengals versus the Patriots, the Jags versus the winner of the Chargers and Titans, etc., etc. Everyone is healthy again. So Herbert back in the lineup for the Los Angeles Chargers, along with Mike Williams, Joey Bosa and company. But the Titans have a healthy Will Levis, along with all their defensive players back on the field. And let's get right into it, man. First team that's going to score in this one is going to be the Chargers. They strike with a field goal at the end of the first, but the Titans get the first touchdown of the game. They extend their lead in the second quarter. Halftime comes and they continue to score 17-10 heading into the fourth. Titans up multiple possessions. Chargers are not going away. Eckler in the backfield. 4-man rush from Tennessee. Herbert stepping up. Not going to take off. Now he's going to take off. Scramble for the first. They're down at the 3. Clock continues to tick. Here comes the blitz from the Titans. And that's a touchdown. Palmer ties this one up. We have overtime in our first game of the tourney. Now this is regular season, so the Chargers get ball first. If they score a touchdown, they win. Chargers have to punt on their first drive in OT. Titans punt on their first drive as well. Second drive, however, here comes Herbert. Chargers missed that connection heavily when Mike Williams went out. It changed their whole offense. Eckler getting them in field goal range. And here's Dicker the kicker for the game-winning kick. And it's good. Up next, we have Geno and the Seahawks. Healthy Jamal Adams taking on a full-strength Chicago Bears team. Let's get this one started. The last spot in the NFC not in playoff tournament bracket is going to be decided in this one. Seattle off to the early lead. They have a 10-6 lead, make it 13-6 at one point, but Chicago refuses to go away. One possession game in the fourth quarter. Seattle explodes in the fourth, scores multiple touchdowns. So the Bears and Titans are out early, and now we can get the official tournament started. Now we have the Bengals with a healthy Joe Burr and that great D-line, taking on Bailey Zappi and the New England Patriots with a healthy Christian Gonzalez, Matthew Judon. Both these teams dealt with some very unfortunate injuries throughout the season. Obviously, the Bengals to the most important position, but the Patriots lost some really good defensive players. I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough when people discuss their season. Meanwhile, look at the Bengals off to a phenomenal start, 28-14, halfway through the fourth, and they're gonna cruise past New England in the first round. Now we have a healthy Kirk Cousins leading the Minnesota Vikings, another team that dealt with some very unfortunate injuries, and they're up against Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders. Now the favorite going into this one has to be the Vikings. I feel like at full strength, they could have been in the playoffs, man. With Kirk Cousins, he was having a lights out season. Jefferson, obviously he went down. He still came back, had a 1,000-yard season. Dude is unbelievable, man. Minnesota has a nice lead, 16-14, but here come the Commanders. They take the lead heading to the fourth quarter. Vikings take it back. Now we're going to go a little slower, see if the Commanders can get a stop, hold them to 3 points to keep their hopes alive. No, the Vikings score a touchdown. Commanders don't do anything on their next drive, and it looks like even if they do, it's too little too late. Minnesota's moving on. We have 2 division rivals going at it. The Broncos. Yes, Russell Wilson's going to remain the starter. I know he got benched the last week, but that was some BS, okay? He got benched because of incentives or something. They didn't want to pay him. I don't know what it was, but he was still their best option. Meanwhile, the Raiders chose Aiden O'Connell way before the last week of the season, so he's actually going to be the starter. Superstar Max Crosby, of course, on defense. Some major implications heading into this one. Both of these teams do not want to be the quote-unquote worst team in their division, man. The Broncos strike first. Raiders score the first touchdown, but the Broncos score another one. We are on the seesaw. You love to see it. Close game heading to the fourth quarter. Raiders with a 7-point lead. Can the Broncos and Russell Wilson Close the gap. No. Las Vegas is headed to the next round to play the Bengals. The New Orleans Saints tied for the best record in this tournament. Cardinals had to start without Kyler Murray, so they were doomed from the beginning. But he is healthy in this tournament. We'll see if he has what it takes, along with Hollywood Brown, Trey McBride, and company, to get the upset over the Saints. They get off to a 10-0 lead, but New Orleans scores in the second quarter. 13-7 ball game heading to the third. The Saints take the lead. 1-point game in the fourth quarter. The Cardinals take the lead back, but they're down once again after the Saints get a touchdown on the next drive. They need a touchdown to win it. All the cornerbacks pressing the wide receivers. Hollywood Brown beats Lattimore with ease. Empty backfield for Kyler. He's going to take off. No. Okay, he's going to throw it to Hollywood Brown. Arizona takes the lead. Now they're going to go for two. This is a very big play because the Saints have 3 timeouts left. Plenty of time to get in field goal range. Arizona has to at least hope they can get this to force overtime. Incomplete pass. 1 timeout left. Play action. Carr to Olave. They're in field goal range. What a play. New Orleans is going to get into the next round thanks to Blake Groupie. They're going to face off against the Vikings in the next round. Aaron Rodgers, one of the first big names, if not the first big name, to really get hurt. Indy knows what it feels like. They lost Richardson early in the season. Now, even without Rodgers, the Jets still finished with a respectable 7-10 record because of that amazing defense. They get off to a 7-0 lead, but the Colts tie it up. They take the lead in the second quarter. Third quarter comes, and here are the Jets tying it back up. We have a very close one once again, 17-all. Anthony Richardson looking to get a game-winning drive. Both teams have all 3 timeouts. Richardson on 2nd and 4 tries to go to JT. That's the very underrated Quincy Williams with the deflection. 3rd and 4. Clock stops. Chance to force a punt for the Jets defense. Look at Richardson taking off. This is what the Colts were missing. Need about 25, 30 yards to get in field goal range. Can they make it happen? They're going to run the ball on 3rd and 13. JT almost gets there instead. Jets are going to use a timeout. They're going to get the ball back. Rodgers is going to have to start from his own 7-yard line. Looks like we're headed to overtime. Unless Breece Hall can get a nice gain. DeForest Buckner with the block shed. And we're going to OT. Now we are in the playoffs in this one. So the Jets get ball first. But unless they score a touchdown, the Colts will get a chance to win it. And would you look at that? Indy gets a stop on the Jets' first possession. So all they need to do is get a field goal. They can't make it happen. But New York does. They win a thriller. 20-17 from one New York team to another. Daniel Jones and the Giants. An ATL led by Taylor Heineke. A team that has really solid weapons, but the coach, Arthur Smith, just did not know how to use them. Here we have 2 teams with pretty talented skill position players. They just need that final piece. And unfortunately, it's the biggest piece to the puzzle, that quarterback. We'll see if they can pick it up in the draft in the offseason or if they trade for one. Who knows? Right now, the Giants up 24-3 at one point. Absolutely blowing out the Falcons. Did not expect this to happen. But credit to Danny Dimes and New York. They're moving to the next round. And then our last AFC matchup in round 1 is Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, who were looking good midway through the season. I think the loss of Christian Kirk really hurt them and is a big reason why they ended up not making the playoffs, but they finished tied with the best record in the tournament, 9-8 on the season. And their opponent is the Chargers, a team we've already seen play in this video. We know what they're capable of at full strength, so we'll see if they can do it again. We have a rematch of the 27-0 comeback game from last year's playoff. I believe it was 27-0, maybe like 24. One of those. Either way, the Chargers trying to get revenge against the Jaguars. They get off to 7-0 lead, not quite 20-something. Jaguars actually have the lead. Heading into the fourth quarter, 17-7 ball game, make it 24-7. Chargers refuse to go away, but it's too little too late. The Jaguars and Doug Peterson are moving on. They're going to play Aaron Rodgers and the Jets next. But we have one last matchup in round 1. Bryce Young and the Panthers taking on a Seahawks team we've already seen in action. They took care of the Bears. Seahawks, another team that finished 9-8. It was looking like they were going to make the playoffs for the longest time. And then the last few weeks, I don't know what happened. But right now, they're struggling against the Panthers. Now, they actually make it a 1-point game in the third quarter. They take the lead. Heading into the fourth, can they hold on to it? Bryce Young helps Carolina take the lead. Now, Geno just needs to get in field goal range. But it's easier said than done against this great group of defensive linemen. They start off with a screen. Kenneth Walker with a nice gain. Here comes the no huddle, 2nd and inches. One of the best wide receiver cores in the entire league with Lockett, Metcalf, Smith, and Jigba. Instead, Geno goes to his running back, Walker. Geno on 2nd and 6 finds Metcalf. They're across midfield. midfield. And here it is, the game-winning attempt from the Seahawks. The kick is up, and it's good. Myers gives them the lead. Panthers gonna lose this one. Seattle, the final team in our Elite 8. First matchup of the final 8. We have the Bengals taking on the Raiders. Another battle between two teams that have great skill position players. Obviously, the Bengals have the edge when it comes to the quarterback position, but look at Las Vegas not only keeping pace, but taking a 14-point lead into halftime. That's the same distance in terms of score we have in the fourth quarter. This has to be an upset. The Raiders take care of the Bengals 38-28, and they're headed to the Final Four. First NFC matchup in the Elite 8, we have the Vikings taking on the Saints. I'd say this makes sense. I mean, of the teams that didn't make the playoffs, I would say both of these teams at full strength have to be in the top 8, okay, in the top half of those teams. And we have a very close one heading into halftime. We had a tied game heading into the fourth quarter. We also have a tied game. The Saints break the tie, but the Vikings tie it up again. No more timeouts for Minnesota. If New Orleans gets this first, they can just milk the clock, take the game-winning field goal. Kamara gonna get tackled for a loss. Great play by Danielle Hunter and Phillips. Let's see if Groupie can give the Saints the lead, and he does. The Vikings need a Minneapolis miracle, and they're not gonna get it. Brian Breesy with the sack. The Saints are headed to the Final Four. Final AFC matchup in the Elite 8. Lawrence and the Jaguars taking on Rodgers and the Jets. Two teams that at the start of the season, a lot of people had in their playoff brackets, so it makes sense to me that they're in the last 8 remaining teams in this experiment. Jaguars off to a nice start, 10-0 at one point. Jets fight back though. 9 unanswered. Jaguars get a touchdown in the fourth quarter, and they're gonna hold on to their lead. Doug Peterson taking his team to the Final Four. And finally, the Seahawks taking on the Giants. Last game in the Elite 8. I think for the Giants to get this far in this tournament is already a W in and of itself. I feel like they're playing with house money. Seahawks have to be the favorite, but right now it's a tie game heading to half number 2. Giants take the lead in the third quarter. Seahawks answer back with a touchdown. They're up 7 in the fourth, now up double digits, and it looks like they're headed to the Final Four. And here we go. This is for bragging rights in the AFC. Jaguars against the Raiders. Would you look at Aiden O'Connell? I mean, this guy has his team in the last game, or the second to last game in this tournament, and he has them with a nice early lead, 14-0 at one point, but the Jaguars score 17 unanswered, making 24 in a row. They just find themselves making comeback after comeback when they need to. Doug Peterson has his team in the championship game of the tournament. Still a nice run from the Raiders and Aiden O'Connell. Whoever wins this can say they're the best NFC team that didn't make the playoffs. The Saints versus the Seahawks. Both teams could have easily made the playoffs and no one would have been surprised. Both teams finished 9-8, above 500. So they both had pretty solid seasons. Obviously did not get the result they wanted, but let's see if they can get it in this one. Saints with a 10-point lead heading into the fourth quarter. Seattle cutting it down to 3. It's a 6-point game, but the Saints get a stop when they need to. 9-point game now, and New Orleans can say they had the best team in the NFC of the teams that didn't make the playoffs. And also great run by Seattle, getting 1 game away from the finals. So here we go. The Saints taking on the Jaguars in the Super Bowl of the not in playoffs tournament. The winner of this gets to say they're the best team in the entire league that did not make it to the playoffs. Now, I feel like Madden did a pretty decent job with this bracket. I mean, both of these teams, once again, finished above 500. Jaguars, I think we're in like the 1 seed for a while. Saints have a great roster when everyone's healthy. They're in the lead at one point. Tie game, 24 all. 1 timeout left. Carr cannot afford to take a sack. He's going for it all, out of bounds. Yeah, you have to punt it right here. Cannot give the Jaguars a chance with great field position. Like the video for overtime in the very last game of this tournament, man. And if you've enjoyed this video up until now, we have to crown a winner. Now, this is in the Super Bowl, so both teams will get the ball. Jaguars are going to have ball first. Even if they score a touchdown, New Orleans gets a chance. Let's see what they're able to do with it on their first drive. They get a touchdown. So now the Saints need to answer back with a touchdown, or their time in this tournament is over. If they don't get it here, the Jaguars are the winners of this tournament. Audible from Derek Carr. Multiple tight ends. They're going to pass again, but this time it's a touchdown. Olave ties this game up. All Jacksonville has to do is get a field goal, and they win. Can they make it happen? They keep the chains moving, and they get the field goal. Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville. A according to Madden, are the best team that missed out on the playoffs. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe so you see more just like it. And I'll see you guys on the next one.